72 hours. That is literally how long Anthropic's highly anticipated Claude Fable 5 model lived in the wild before it was just globally shut down. And we're not talking about a system bug or a server crash here. No, this was because of a sudden, sweeping government order.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking an absolutely unprecedented event, the exact moment a cloud-based AI model was suddenly classified as a strictly regulated export. Seriously, this is the story of how an API was treated like a strategic weapon, and we're going to look at what this actually means for the future of global tech as we know it. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the 72-hour shutdown, then look at the security versus industry pushback. After that, we'll cover the AI governance gap, the kill switch vulnerability, and wrap up with the push for tech sovereignty. All right, Section 1, the 72-hour shutdown. So let's walk through this incredibly rapid sequence of events because things moved fast. On June 9th, Anthropic launches Fable 5 and Mythos 5. Just 2 days later, June 11th, a judge grants an injunction blocking a Department of Defense domestic supply chain ban on Anthropic. But then, literally, the very next day, June 12th, the U.S. Commerce Department steps in and issues a sweeping export control order. This directive forced Anthropic to block all foreign nationals from using the models. And, well, because it's basically mathematically and operationally impossible to verify the nationality of millions of users in real time, the result was a total global shutdown by June 13th. Millions of users just hitting a 404 error mid-sentence. Now, to really understand why the government intervened like this, you've got to look at the two models Anthropic released. First, you have Mythos 5. This one was heavily restricted, available only to vetted partners like AWS, Apple, and the NSA. And get this, it autonomously found over 10,000 zero-day software bugs in its first month. Then you have Fable 5. This was the public release. It actually had the exact same powerful reasoning engine as Mythos, but it came with added safety classifiers to prevent abuse. Yet in a massive twist of irony, it was the heavily guarded Fable 5 that triggered the huge government alarm. Which brings us to Section 2, Security versus Industry Pushback. And this brilliantly illustrates the core clash of our whole explainer today. We're looking at an objective comparison here. On one hand, the government's view is rooted in a real fear of weaponized AI. They argue that a model capable of autonomous code reading significantly lowers the cost and the barrier to entry for adversaries wanting to launch cyber attacks. But look at the industry view. They push back hard, arguing that the reported jailbreak, which was basically just asking the model to fix code-based flaws, is actually incredibly narrow. They're saying that restricting access actively penalizes the cyber defenders who rely on these exact same tools to audit systems and patch vulnerabilities. And this pushback, it wasn't just some corporate PR spin. It was highly organized. Nearly 80 cybersecurity professionals and executives signed an open letter to the U.S. Commerce Department. They made the point that Fable 5's capabilities basically just match existing models that are already out there in the wild, like GPT 5.5. Their main argument is that banning these models creates massive market uncertainty and literally takes vital tools away from the good guys. I mean, think about it. How can you possibly improve defense while actively forbidding the very tools that defense requires? Moving right along to Section 3, the AI governance gap. Now, what's really interesting here is how this exposes a massive void in our regulations. Traditionally, export controls were built for, shipping wooden crates. We're talking physical goods, chips, missiles, crossing a physical customs checkpoint, backed by written specs and standardized appeals. But with Fable 5, the export was cloud-based API access. The border wasn't a geographic line on a map anymore. It was a user's nationality and passport. The evidence was just verbal reports of a jailbreak. And the process? Zero prior notice and absolutely no standardized route for appeal. Experts are basically calling this the unseen rulebook. Anthropic's leadership made the argument that recalling a commercial model, one deployed to hundreds of millions of people, shouldn't just be based on verbal assertions or some unseen demonstration. They're pointing out that regulating frontier AI really requires a statutory process, one that's transparent, fair, and actually grounded in technical facts, rather than just closed-door directives. Let's zoom out a bit for Section 4, the kill switch vulnerability. We are looking at a brand new definition of enterprise risk right here, the AI kill switch. This is the strategic vulnerability that's created when a globally available cloud dependency can just be abruptly revoked by a foreign government's policy change. Fable 5 going dark overnight proved that depending on a single hosted model is a massive critical point of failure for organizations everywhere. It's a tough lesson, but availability you don't actually control is a risk you absolutely have to plan for. Let's see how this builds into practical steps, because security teams really have to adapt and treat AI systems as volatile attack surfaces. Drawing on recommendations from firms like SNCC, here's the playbook. Step 1. Inventory exactly where AI lives in your tech stack. Step 2. Build model redundancy and graceful fallbacks. Never ever rely on just one provider. And Step 3. Implement your own internal guardrails. Don't just sit around hoping a vendor or a foreign government doesn't suddenly pull the plug on you.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, the push for tech sovereignty.
So the crucial point here on the macro geopolitical scale is perfectly captured by French politician Bruno Retailleau. He said, "A nation that depends on others for its technology is a nation that can be unplugged overnight." For European leaders at the recent G7 summit, the Fable 5 shutdown wasn't just some random tech glitch. No, it was a glaring, immediate wake-up call about their deep technological dependence on American infrastructure. And because of that wake-up call, we're seeing this massive international scramble to secure sovereign AI infrastructure. The EU rapidly proposed a technological sovereignty package, which is aimed squarely at strengthening regional semiconductors, cloud computing, and open-source AI. At the same time, Canada launched its AI for All national strategy. The shared goal here is simple: ensure that critical hospital, energy, and digital systems aren't left vulnerable to foreign whims. Nations are realizing they have to build resilience through local AI infrastructure and alliances.
It's honestly like the return of geography. For the last 30 years, the internet promised us that physical borders mattered less, right? Well, today, they might matter more than ever. There is a deep irony here. Leading AI researchers, we're talking top minds like Andrej Karpathy, were reportedly locked out of Fable 5 simply because of their green card status. It's wild, but it proves that in this new AI landscape, physical borders, visas, and nationality are completely dictating who gets access to frontier capabilities.
And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway from this entire saga. If access to cognitive reasoning is the new border in our digital world, who holds your passport? Are you and your organization truly digitally independent, or are you just one export control order away from losing your core capabilities? It's something to think about as we watch how this shapes the future of global AI access. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.